10,001 error codes, yes, we're definitely fixing. But then, there's some subjective feedback of like, I don't like this, or I do like this, or whatever. Now, some of those issues they're calling out, we already know about, we're already working at addressing.
I always get a bit worried because, first of all, we're getting kind of subjective feedback that's sort of anecdotal. And so, someone can have a strong opinion, but, that could be their opinion, and it may be different than someone else's opinion else has spoken up. So it needs to go through the filter of us on the very high level of the kind of design side to make sure that, it's something that we want or agree, because a lot of times people can't see the big picture when they're making, feedback, because they don't know where like, well, this is missing, I need this. And we're like, yeah, no, we know it's missing. It's kind of like on our task list, we're working on it right now, and we understand that it hurts your ability to dogfight if you can't see the status of your target or the status of your ship. So I just want to make sure we do that, because I'm a little worried that like we automate it, suddenly these subjective feedback get written up as a JIRA, they get put in someone's bucket, maybe they get assigned, and it's like we'll spend some time working on stuff that needs to have kind of direction and order and priority called out. And sometimes what people want to get fixed, the solution is somewhere else to fix the issue they're complaining about. So on the subjective stuff, I kind of want to make sure that we're going through a filter on that.
Hey gang, it's weird that there's not more videos on this. I remember a couple years back, Noobifier would have had a 2-minute vid about this thing, probably within 30 seconds of it dropping, but here we are. I'm not sure what that says about the state of the community or where our collective heads are at regarding the state of the game, but let's get into it, because there's some information here that's definitely worth talking about. In my head, I'm going to break this out into 3 parts, but I'll try to keep it pretty short. Yeah, let's start here. I don't know about you, but in the Carnival Caravan, this was the big question. What happened? What caused this? And of course, they're implementing more features this year, and some of those features are going to break. But this seemed more systemic. So many things broke or were breaking that the entire game's stability was seemingly threatened. Now, again, a lot of this is perception, because the people who are impacted by these changes and these breaks are going to be a lot louder about it on the various social media sites and Spectrum and Reddit and so on. But even for those of us with a more stable gaming experience like myself, things still weren't good. Old bugs that were indicative of heavy server load or instability were still popping up. The thing is that in the past, these would usually be linked to some big installment, something like Planet Tech or server meshing, that sort of thing. But that wasn't the case this time. I mean, sure, we got engineering and an inventory update, but the breaks seem to be happening everywhere across all systems rather than just being focused on those elements. So is that it?
We just put 4.8.2 out yesterday. I've got you. We're live.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, it started with an attempt at a bug fix a month ago. So with this 4.8 release and the way we've been doing patches this year, we have 2 streams when we work off from the working set. We have a base stream that we use for the base release, so 4.8.0, and we have a hotfix stream where we bring all the continuous changes along. So there was an attempt at bug fixing something on the Idris that was actually creating some performance issue somewhere else. That was checked into that stream, and nobody saw it, and it went through. So we've been on the hotfix stream now for 4.8.1, now going to 4.8.2. In 4.8.2, we went back to the base stream, which are supposed to be at parity at this point, except additional content, because we've added additional content in the patch. That change was included. And so what's supposed to be a routine update became a massive, wide-sprawling issue, because basically the Idris was no longer compatible with its persisted copy. And so what that would do is players have in their ASOP terminal They have a version of the address that's from 4.8.1. This change, which was not supposed to be in the stream at all, gets in there. And so now the game server is expecting another shape for this, right? So the game server is trying to spawn the address wherever it is, right? So that's called the async spawn chain. And so as he's trying to resolve the object containers for this and to materialize the ship in game, he comes around an incompatibility. And then there's a hard check for this, because if we let those through, if we disarm this check, for example, then the game server might corrupt ships or might be twisting data, and then we would go wider than that. And so the game server would crash. So
there's all this. So there's all this stuff that we have to work on and fix.
Yep.
There's all this stuff that we are working on and fixing. And yesterday, in a patch that was just supposed to add, the two new, GATAC ships and some hot fixes to some of the more persistent
bring back
issues.
the odd fixes from the odd fix branch and
A
move forward.
Completely unrelated check into the Idris
Yes,
somehow made it through validation or missed validation.
correct.
Like this, got in, and now the server, which is still built, the persistence records, which are still built on 4.8.1, and expecting a 4.8.1 version of the ship.
Also 4.8.0. because
4.8.0.
They're compatible.
Really? Okay. So it's expecting a 4.8.0 version of the ship, got a 4.8.2 version of the ship without knowing that there was supposed to be a difference, and just went, all right, I'm gonna head out.
That's right.
You did the SpongeBob meme.
Yeah, and so every time an Idris would be attempted to spawn, that server in that region would crash, and then restart, and then try to load the Idris again, and then crash again. And so as players were unstowing more Idrises and more shards, more servers got affected, until you reach a point where now the ops team is in the background, and they're like lighting all the fires, like the Rohan.
You were
calling the Rohan.
I saw you online at like 3:30 this morning.
Yeah. And so we're looking at this, and basically we start cordoning off shards, because at the beginning we're not sure what the issue is. So we start cordoning off shards, and what happens in this case is like the more shards are getting offline, the less capacity we have for players that are either entering the game or shard hopping. We have a lot of people shard hopping, and so what happens is they hit the dreaded 60,012 error, which means, hey, there's no capacity in your zone. There is capacity, but we've had to restrict it in the meantime. And so we took a hard decision later in the night to prevent players from spawning Idrises temporarily, just to kind of stop breaking other shards. We brought more shards online to keep that playing. And then we basically went through and manually rectified. That's what we call percussive maintenance. When you see that in the status, it means we went in and we did a drastic measure to basically fix the addresses that were either spawned in shards or still left in inventories to make sure that they had the proper schema.
So yeah, it was just an update to the code for the Idris that dropped into the wrong branch. And then there was more code that was dropped in again for the wrong branch. And you can really feel their frustration about that. And actually, that's a pretty good segue to my second part. I was trying to figure out how to say all of this that I'm about to say and then weave it into the larger idea, but it really deserves its own section, so here we are. Really, and I've been saying this for the last couple of years, but Star Citizen is in big boy pants territory. It's a real game now, Geppetto. The foundation for this game, with the exception of dynamic server meshing, is largely complete. Now CIG has to make the actual game. They have to make it fun. They have to make it all work together. The tools and the structure, the foundation, are largely built now. This won't be too long because, again, I say this a lot, this project turned a corner at some point during lockdown. While it still vacillates between a tech demo and a game, there's definitely a lot more to do now, and the times that you'd log into a patch, play for about a week, and then go do something else until the next patch dropped, yeah, those days are largely over. even when things are a little broken or one loop's broken or one event is broken, there's still plenty to do. And with 3 star systems, plenty to see. You can just go do something else until the fix is in on the thing you were going to do. Even with patches coming every couple months, I sometimes, usually, find myself scrambling to do all the things I want to do before the next patch drops. Build rep, build wealth, build things now that crafting is in the game. You get the idea. If CIG wanted to, and had this been a different kind of project, they could just tie a bow on these 3 systems, polish them up, dump in a story, and call it a day. It would be multiplayer, and it wouldn't be nearly as expansive as the dream that we've all carried for the last 12 or 13 years. And of course, we're dealing with CR's vision here, and it's a very expansive, complex vision. I've also said this before, but what we're seeing now is the only way something like Star Citizen gets made, at least for the first time. I'm sure if Star Citizen goes gold and it's a huge success, all the bigs will try to duplicate it. That's just kind of the way it goes. But someone had to be first. Someone had to innovate it and prove it could work. Someone had to prove it would actually be viable, that it would be worth the time and effort it would take to create it. In other words, the only way Star Citizen or something like it ever gets built is if some crazy person has the vision and will keep at it for a decade or more and has near unlimited funding. And that second one, that probably only happens if it's crowdfunded by a bunch of similarly insane people, but definitely not a cult. I'm not in a cult. You're in a cult. Anyways, yes. If Star Citizen is a success, you're damn right the Sonys of the world will poop one out in a year or two. And there's already some games out there in the neighborhood like No Man's Sky and Elite Dangerous that could make the leap with a few tweaks. And they're making those tweaks now. But for right now, Star Citizen is in kind of a prove it territory. It's a massive, hugely complex project. It's a do everything game, and the reason why those usually fail is that the coding just becomes too complex. It just sprawls out too much and the whole thing collapses. And it kind of feels that this is the precipice we find ourselves on. And you can feel the frustration in not only Jared, but in Benoit and Jan's whole demeanor. This is something they care about. This is not a scam, even though it's breaking, and that's frustrating. So when Benoit says...
Basically, we've been firefighting since 4.8.0. I want to touch on one thing, because we just had a one-off-the-cuff moment about the Idris last night, right? But 2 weeks prior to that, we had another downtime patch that, needed a lot of rectification. So the people that the teams that run the online group were, hard at work on this maintenance. And unfortunately, another one of those unwanted check-ins came in during that 4.8.1 cycle, deleted them from existence from the game. And that's not something that you can do in a minor patch. And so clearly, that's 2 instances in this patch where changes and check-ins should have been validated and prevented and went in. And then after that became an infrastructure problem, because same issue here. If somebody was wearing the VGL flight suit and referred to these entity classes that were actually representing, I think, the nozzle and the front pack of the suit, then the game server would crash. And so we had, again, to do percussive maintenance to remove those items and fix that. And so that highlights to me a massive issue with how we validate check-ins and how we get changes in the game across persistence until we have full forward porting compatibility on the persistence layer, which we don't have at the moment.
Oh, will be a game changer.
Yes.
What's your perspective, Ian? I'm keen. It's
Well, it's live service. You're always running, right? You're always running. Like we're talking about forward patching. If we'd been behind closed doors, you would have done that, right? No one had ever seen the game until you've done that piece of technology, but that's not who we are. We're always running, and that's what makes it really, really exciting to work here as well, right? Because, it's we're putting ourselves out there all the time. But if I look at this specific case, you're saying like, right, we have checks and we have contracts on what you can and can't do in these substreams that we've already released, where the data management is super, super strict. And obviously now we invalidating them twice in a row. So it's time to look at like how do we really add that extra layer of protection.
Why is this happening? Why? Look, it's I know. I have to be. I'm allowed a lot of latitude here. I'm allowed a lot of latitude here, and I appreciate it from the people that I work for. But this is really frustrating.
Yeah.
How is it? Why does this happen? Why is this happening? I can't sit here and do this job and feel good about my job without asking you outright, why is this happening? If everybody is working as hard as I know they are, and everybody is working as dedicated as they are, and everybody is as talented as I know they are, why does something like this still happen? Why has it happened twice in the last 2 weeks?
I think there's a part of that which is that we're transforming the game. We're still transforming the game into an MMO, right? We're still in the process of taking a game that used to run on a single server in now obviously a server mesh, which that's working, but the game systems need to expand as well. And if you add the content pressure on top of that, right, of getting content into the game, releasing it at the same time, stabilizing it, hardening it, and features that come in and do the inverse. New features come in and they destabilize the system. Without stronger guardrails that also need to evolve with this, that's where we ended up. And so I think that, to be honest, I think at this right now, we're outpacing our ability of verifying everything that's being added to the game. And this is where we need to put a lot of our energy at the moment, is to put in those guardrails so that, the check-in that would cause this crash issue, right? Those are identified at this point. And so it's all about adding these validation frameworks to prevent that from happening and keeping the data stable and fully validated. Now, that sounds, well, why didn't you do that before, right?
You're not saying that there were no guardrails in
No,
place.
no. There are guardrails in place, but
they're not keeping up with the pace.
correct. We're definitely now post 4.7 in a realm where just human validation is not enough, right? And so a lot of game design data is typically, managed by the team. But I think that we're way past that, and we need machine validation for everything, because the rate at which we build it and the amount of technology we're putting in is just too fast for validation to keep up.
What he's talking about is more automated system to make sure no game-breaking code, at least not code that breaks the entire game because it's in the wrong branch, can sneak in accidentally. By now, there are certainly millions of lines of code, maybe tens of millions. Some of it is legacy from CryEngine from 2013 or 14, maybe 2012. You get the idea. This thing is a house of cards at this point. And part of the thing CIG is trying to do is make the game redundant enough and robust enough that it can survive having a card pulled out here and there. It's just way too much work for one person to do. And that's why Benoit talking about having an automated process makes sense. It's honestly kind of surprising that they're implementing it now and not years ago. The problem there is similar to the problems we had in the previous decade of this project. It'll take time, trial, and error to build out that system. So we're at yet another inflection point for this project. Personally, I think they'll still pull it off. And that doesn't mean that we won't have another 100 miles of rough road to go. And I'm not an eternal optimist with this project. If it fails, it fails, but I want to see it succeed. And it's not like I'm a huge content creator over here that's relying on CIG to produce this for my money. YouTube sends me a check about once every 7 months for $100. That's not putting food on the table. Okay, so I wanted to wrap up this part with a brief look at another aspect of this project. I was thinking actually this could be its own vid, but the context kind of dovetails with what I've been saying before, and it kind of explains a big pushback in the community, really from the start of this whole project. So let's get into it. Okay, for those of you who have followed this channel for a while, you'll know that my career for probably the last 25 years was an accountant. I was basically a budget manager for a large project. And then I kind of moved into the legal realm, became a paralegal, but the majority of my adult life has been tied up in numbers and payroll and that sort of thing. So with any business, this is the first question you have to answer before you even begin. What are you going to sell? For example, McDonald's sells food. People buy the food, people eat the food, people buy more food from McDonald's. Car companies build cars. People buy the cars, they build more cars. The cars break down, they sell services, but it's still the car that they're selling. With things like social media that are free, it becomes a little more nebulous. Well, it does until you realize that you are the product that social media is selling to advertisers. Whatever platform we're talking about is just a vehicle to keep you engaged so you see those ads, and that is their customers, not you. With most games, it's the game itself. People buy the game to play the game, full stop. You throw down your $60, you play the game for a couple weeks, that's the product. But Star Citizen, if you look at the funding, is a different animal. How does Star Citizen make their money? The game? Game packages are around $45, and I can guarantee you they didn't just hit $1 billion selling $45 game packages. No, the product Star Citizen is selling is the ships. The game is just a vehicle for displaying and interacting with the ships. People like the ships. They buy more ships. Of course, the game environment has to be working in order for CIG to sell those highly detailed, incredible works of art. Yes, even the Reliant. Okay, maybe not the Reliant. So CIG stopping development of ships to make the game isn't a thing that will ever happen. One final point before I wrap this thing up. Art and writing will always race well ahead of development of the game. It's just the nature of the beast. It's easier to write a story or a design document than it is to construct an entire program that will do all the things that the design doc says it should do. As someone who used to do 3D art, it's easier, okay, maybe not easier, but it's at least quicker to create that 3D piece of art than it is to create all the program that will contain that piece of art or enable, for example, in Star Citizen, to create the ship, or that enables all the loops that the ship is capable of. So yes, the people who make the ships can bust out ships way faster than the programmers can program the game. That's just the nature of game development. The characters will be made ages before there's an engine they can run around in. Well, and then artists need to go in and actually create the world, but you get the point. The art will always race ahead of the programming, and Star Citizen will always be releasing ships no matter the state of the game, because art's quicker than programming, and the art is the product that they're selling. And gang, that's all I got for this one. Let me know what you think down below to combat the almighty algorithm and get this one out there if you want to, and catch me next time.